Call the meeting in order and stand for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we got the Grant County Sheriff's Office here for our meeting.
Agenda.
I will make that motion, Mr. Chair, to approve the agenda.
Okay.
Second.
Motion and second to approve the agenda. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Go ahead.
Morning.
Morning.
Thank you for having this special meeting. I just wanted to go through, I think you guys received the packet. With the follow-up questions, if we want to go through that, or does anybody else?
To present,
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, can we request the presenters to move up front so the whole guy can hear them?
I'm gonna run out and get my computer.
Yeah.
Let me just wait.
He went to get his computer.
Oh,
I'll
okay.
be back.
You go ahead.
Does everybody have the packet? Is there any other questions that you guys might have? Or, I was thinking I would just go through kind of like each document that I sent with you guys.
Yeah, that would be good.
That's good, okay. So the first page is the document that says with all the questions and answers. Number one is the history of Axon, as listed, you know, it's a company that's been growing every year since, you know, 1993, and it's, they just keep adding to their products and their AI, advancement. That there's a lot of notable agencies, at least 300 individual agencies in the state of Minnesota are actively using Axon body worn cameras or the fleet system. Question number 3 was that we wanted to know like the individual costs of each of the package, that's quoted. If we were just to buy them out, you know, individually, you can see it's a considerable amount more. And this does include after July 1st, the AI bundle goes up another $66,000 in a 10-year contract. So a total unbundled cost for everything would be $971,508. Yeah, and the sheets that were provided to you last session was the 5-year and 10-year contracts. The 5-year contracts and the 10-year, there's a price increase of a 4 to 12% inflation rate. If we went with the 5-year, or if we waited and did this a different year. I know somebody had asked about the July 1st deadline, if that was like set in stone, and it really is. Axon has been advertising this for many months. That it just has to, July 1st is the date for the AI bundle. And we can go through the quote individual line item if you wanted to. I know that there was many questions about, is this a lease or is this, or do we own the equipment? And we own the equipment. It acts as a lease because we're getting the updates at 5 or 2.5, 5, 7.5, and 10.
Right.
It acts as a lease, and I think some individuals might use that term loosely as a lease just because it kind of acts like a lease, but we own the equipment, and you know, it's ours to keep. The software obviously has to be updated, so we don't own the software. We, you know, at the end of a 10-year contract or end of a 5-year contract, we have to update that software. But we can keep the equipment that we receive. I know that there was a question asked, like, where could we like try to save money, you know, in the quote, and they do offer a body worn camera. It's at 4 right now, and they do offer the 3, but it doesn't integrate some of the AI functions, what we were looking for. And then people had questions about the Stevens County contract. And so I did have a lot of good information from their coordinator and as well as their chief deputy. So they do have a 5-year contract. They're about 2.5 years into their 5-year contract. So they have the older equipment because there's new stuff and they haven't been able to update it yet. I know that they have the body worn camera and then the fleet systems. They do not have the AI functions, but they are looking into purchasing that like a la carte, which is going to be substantially more because it's not included with their bundle. And then they would have to get everything upgraded to make so that the AI can integrate into their software. I know some people had said that they thought that they had received grants, and so I did look into that further. It was not grants, it was the public safety aid funds that they used, and
That we got from the state, right?
correct,
Okay.
yep. And also with the disbanding of the Morris Police Department, they were able to receive Morris PD's public safety aid fund. So some of that money was put towards that. So I have been working with Chandler with Axon. I think we talk daily, if not more than once a day. And so they were able to give us another $40,000 discount on top of what he'd already received from what we were quoted last Tuesday. So that with the exclusive discount, it would be a total of $128,768. With the bundled, it would be $199,208 for a 10-year contract. So John and I, we have been working with Chad and looking at how we can integrate this into our budget going forward. So the first line item is $22,000, and that's from the BJA grant that we received. That grant was a match, so we would have to match that, and so we have decided we would put $26,156 into that. And then the sheriff's office is willing to give some of our public safety aid money to go towards this. So.
Again, the grant from Fed was 22, then you said Grant County put in 26. But that's out of your office too?
That is out of our office.
And
too.
then, so both of those categories are,
Yes, the 86,156 would be the total,
yeah,
Yeah.
would be our contribution.
okay.
So that would bring it down to, or if you add all of that up, it's $108,156. So then you take that off of the 759 and that we would be at 650,934.
Okay, what was that again? How much?
650,934.
Okay,
So if you look at the spreadsheet that Chad and I.
yeah, I see
Yep.
that.
So then we, take that into 9 additional years, it's $72,326 would be the payment. We wanted to look to see where in our budget we would be cost saving. And we did find that the WatchGuard maintenance fee, we will no longer be utilizing WatchGuard. That's our fleet system at right now. And that is $22,814. That was this year's payment, which is an annual payment. And then the taser cartridges, we pay about $740 a year for taser cartridges. So that would bring us down to $23,554. So if you subtract that from the 72,000, it would be $48,772. But we also want to take into consideration currently with our WatchGuard, with our fleet system, we have a server that we have to put the data on. And those servers are good for 3 to 5 years, most of the time. And those are about $22,000 right now with, everything is going up with inflation. So that would be about 66,000 within a 10-year time frame that we would have to pay to upgrade a server if we didn't have, this. We also had an upgrade to the WatchGuard's software, and that was $8,000. And then if we had to individualize and buy the taser, it would be $136,000. And with the in squad cameras that need to be replaced, is $251,000. So we didn't put that in, the $48,000, but these are things that we just should also be considered.
Well, okay, and then regardless of whether we do this today or not, down the road, you need all this stuff.
We do.
So, yeah, I see what you're saying there.
Yeah.
But if we go with this system, this 43,000 a year, as the cameras need to be updated and stuff, that just comes
with it.
the servers.
We have no servers, it's all
No.
cloud based.
Right,
Yeah.
but I mean, that's all included.
Yeah.
But if we don't do this, we're gonna have to update servers and cameras,
And
because we're gonna
tasers.
get the cameras, I mean. There's hardly any agencies without cameras anymore, right?
Right.
So,
And
and tasers, we have to update tasers because they're old.
they're extremely old, yep.
Okay, well,
We've been beneficial, or we've benefited from other departments grabbing new equipment and we're buying their used. And we're getting by. So we're, but just moving forward, these are all things, just like we need ammunition. We need to start getting this into our budget and, and this software, it's new to us, this equipment, this is new to us, we haven't had squad cameras for that long, so this is all new to us. And so I think just moving forward, this is just a necessity that needs to be done. So if you want to go, we can go through the quote. We can go line by line if you would like, or if you have any questions.
I had a couple, these cameras that are in the cars, how much view have you got? A lot of times, like, you end up stopping a car or something like that. Are they older?
There's three different views on the current camera systems,
Okay.
squads. So there's a back seat, full view of the back seat. And then there's a zoom camera and also a wide angle camera
Panoramic.
that are out front. So you got a panoramic view basically from the sides of the car forward, and then also, so there's technically three cameras per.
Right, but that traditionally covers a stop. But how many times have they been away from that where you can't see them in those views? How many times has that happened in a given year?
Well, it depends,
What
you know,
happens?
if you're by yourself and you made an arrest and anything out the right front or left front of that squad car, if you're putting somebody in the back seat, outside that squad car, there is no coverage.
Okay.
Yeah.
Body cams would change and all that.
It would, yes, yeah.
So these body worn cameras. Deputy walks into a building and there's something horrific in there. It's all there, it's all documented, it's not,
The video and audio are documented,
Yeah.
correct?
yeah, and, I don't think he could, you know, that type of evidence is crucial, that's for sure.
Right now, the way it works with our current in-squad cameras is each one of the deputies has a wireless mic that they wear on their vests. Now, the wireless mics still pick up away from the squads. So if they enter a house or something like that, we still have the audible recording or audio recording. But that too, it's hit and miss at times with the connectivity. So at least we have the audio, but we do not have any video. Where you did have the body worn cameras, the video and audio are always there.
So the server. You had mentioned that we would still have the need for the server, so apply. I think you talked to Chad, so apply our ongoing need to the 3 to 5 year average replacement.
Okay, what was your question?
Well, if you pull
Yeah.
this component off the server.
Yeah.
How does that apply to the 3 to 5 year average replacement? Cause you're capturing all the costs, but we'll still have that server, so help me with that math.
So we're, our CAD RMS system is also going on the server. But, you know, we are also looking at upgrading that as well.
Upgrading the server or some other system?
Yeah, another one. Because our CAD RMS system is, they're not maintaining it anymore,
That's
but that's another,
a whole nother
Yeah.
conversation, and that's
But
one, that's
let's
not.
just focus on the server.
yeah,
And because now we're talking cloud-based, and that was the other question I have, and I'll ask it, and you
Yeah.
can wade into it. Is if this is a lease, are we also leasing the cloud-based storage, or do we own that? Or what's the longevity of the cloud-based piece? And
Okay,
now
so-
what's the component as far as the need for the current server in relation to a 3 to 5 year replacement?
so it's not a lease, it's, we own it. So once our contract, if we did go ahead with the contract, once the 10 years is up, then they would work, like if we don't renew that, then we would have to find a server to put all the data that we have in evidence.com, which is Axon. They would help us integrate it into a server.
So we would no longer have cloud-based storage with Axon at 10 years if we didn't continue.
Correct.
At that point, or could we assume then at that point, the server we have now wouldn't be large enough and we would have to purchase something?
No, it would be 10 years down the road for a server for that type of space. I would hate to imagine what that cost would be.
So, okay, so I get that. So now let's go back to the $66,000.
Yep.
We still will have that server, right? Will we need to replace it?
No, so the current server that Jen is referencing was specifically purchased for the use of WatchGuard system storage. Okay, and.
Last year.
Yep, so that was last year that we spent $22,000 on that server, okay? So if we move away from WatchGuard and move away from having to store anything on that server and go all cloud-based with Axon or evidence.com, we would not have to replace that server anymore because there's no additional data that is going on it. Now, with that being said, that server is quite large and it belongs to Graham County. Okay, so that server can be utilized for other means, for storage by the county, by the sheriff's office. However, it would be agreed upon. And then I guess the question would be is, does that have to be replaced for some reason moving further down the line? But I think that would be more of a countywide question than it would be specifically the sheriff's office.
I don't see Pope and your notable agencies using it. They don't do that down there?
No, they have, I believe that they're using WatchGuard.
Okay.
Yep, yep.
So, and they had in their body cameras or are they in the cars?
No, and
Okay.
both.
So I'll reference the fatality that was in Cyrus. Was that a critical that they had body cameras on them for that case moving forward for training purposes or whatever? I mean, did it help the investigation there? I mean, it was
Did it help
conclusive from the beginning, but I mean, what I'm driving at is, did they learn from it? Having these body cameras on? Some of the do's and don'ts and, you know what I mean?
And it's not an open investigation that, and I don't really care to get into
No, the
that,
details.
no,
But with these cameras,
I would assume it's only gonna help, yeah.
yeah, with the cameras, it's collecting evidence, it's substantiating what people say. And those cameras they're just very valuable. That's all I can say, so.
If you want, we can go, to the quotes, and on the second page is the payment schedules. Now, Axon is very easy to work with, and they can, if we don't wanna do, the payment schedule that they have listed, we don't have to. They can tailor it to whatever we need. We decided it would be nice to bring the price down, so, we provided, the $108,000 for the first year. And we thought it would just be easier just to budget, 72,000 for the next 10 years. But this can be tailored to whatever we need. It's at least 10% that is needed.
I see they were willing to take that payment the 1st of November every year. Is that what it says?
Yes, yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So. Yeah.
So that 108, then that was kind of your thoughts on putting that 108 down right away.
In the beginning. First thing, because we had the $22,000 from the BGA grant that we will receive. With the traffic, we have a traffic diversion fund that we are going to exhaust, which is the 26,156. And then we're gonna use 60,000 of the public safety aid money. So bringing the grant or a total of 108,156.
Is there more public safety money? Other than the 60?
Can't be much left, is there?
Yeah, there is, some left.
Right now. I mean, how much would have done there, right? I don't know. It was earmarked for stuff like this.
It
It was
was,
one-time money. Right?
um, did you wanna go through the quote or is there any?
That's fine.
Okay. No, because this is. I mean, this is taking out, like we're taking this out. This is just for them. So if you look under the program, it says the Fleet 3 Basic and TAP. So the Fleet 3 Basic, and that is the squad car cameras. Now I was told, I said, this is, quite expensive. And so, they said the TAP is what is the renewing of so every 5 years, the Fleet 3 is updated, the equipment is updated. And then with the TAP, that gives us another update at the end of the contract. So you're potentially buying the newest product before our contract ends. Which, in the long term of things, you are saving money because now the next contract, if we get into one, we don't have to purchase the new because we already have it. So I'm receiving 2025 prices for 10 years down the road for the newest of whatever they have. So obviously that's going to be a cost savings. Now, if we wanted to get rid of the TAP, that's the upgrade at the end of the contract, it would be $44,000. We could take off. But if you think of that, you might save 44,000 now, but in 10 years, you're gonna have to buy new equipment, which is gonna be more than $44,000. So in the long run, we're saving money, but if we had to, we could exonerate that TAP, the renewal, and then we would just pay more 10 years and 30, 35, 36. The bundle is the officer safety plan, and that's tasers, and that's our body worn cameras put together. And then the Axon, that's for the 10-year of anything that they come up with. Like just this year, they came up with 3 new programs. So we can see the way that AI is progressing, it's moving faster than anybody can, purchase. So we are receiving any AI function for 10 years at this price. If you go down to the a la carte software, obviously the licenses we can't really get rid of. The Axon community request. This is so when a deputy or John or I are out and we receive, somebody has evidence on their phone, we can send a link to them and they can upload their information to Axon right now. So it would be less time for us to having to, take a picture of it, upload it to our computer, then upload it to the software.
That's something that can be provided to the public,
Yeah.
not just officers.
And with that, it's kind of being more proactive. If there was a case where something, we had to take a picture of it on our phone, that becomes evidence, right? Our phone becomes evidence.
Yeah.
This way, which that can be taken away from us and it would be discoverable as evidence. So this way it kind of eliminates that, and it goes right to the cloud, to evidence.
The system insulates the phones.
Yep. And obviously we need the performance licensing. The first one is the Axon Evidence Redaction Assistant, per data request, that using the AI equipment, it's amazing. And I think it's gonna save our records ladies a lot of time and savings, cost savings. So, and then if you go down to the a la carte services, the PSO virtual training, how this was explained to me is that, with the TASER 10s, you receive like a virtual,
Their goggles.
a kind of goggles, yeah, you put it on your head and it shows you scenarios. It's quite difficult to set up, and so that $2,000 is, it's someone helping you try to set that up. So whether it's Axon or it's MEI, you know, I think it's gonna be pretty like similar cost. They said it's quite extensive and it's difficult to do, so. Yeah.
The backside community request, was that where they had something on their phone that could be uploaded?
Yep, or let's say there was something like a business has a camera and we needed that footage. We could just send them a link and they can upload it to that. So it'll make things easier for everybody. Right now, sometimes we have to come there with the USB, download it to the USB. And then we have to we'll call MEI to try to figure out which format it's gonna open up with and how it can integrate with our systems. This way with Axon, it's just, Axon does all the hard work and they can get the right format to make it play for everybody.
So you're saying that it's gonna help out the county attorney's time too?
County attorneys, prosecuting defense attorneys, and I know that Justin receives, you know, state patrol, DNR, he already has an access to Axon. And it really streamlines, makes everything so much easier.
So when you say the transfer of the data is much different when it's transferring from a whatever scenario to Axon as it would be to a USB or to another hard drive? Would the transfer data be any different, and would the outcome be any different since it's originating from the same camera?
Different. I don't, it's not gonna change it.
Well, the reason I'm asking, that's $16,000. If the camera, if the clarity of the picture in the moment, and what we're talking about is $16,000 to streamline how we move that video or that evidence to
Yeah.
something. If the outcome's the same, does it feel like a lot of money?
Yeah, I see what you're.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying now. I'm
Yeah.
just confused.
The redacting and the license, I mean, I see performance, I don't know if there's. Just wonder how many times in our county that feels like a lot of money if the outcome is the same.
the outcome would be the same. That's, I guess, is the easy, quick answer. I mean, eventually we would have it in where we need it as far as in our case. Or something to that extent, yes. It's sometimes the time associated, I guess you could say. Where the deputy has to make arrangements with the business to have access to their system. In order to take a thumb drive to do the download. And then bring that thumb drive back to our office. And turn it into office personnel. To then put that into the system. That's where the streamlining comes, where now it's like, Ken, here's the link. If, when you have a chance, send your video to this link, and then it's automatically there for everybody to see. Immediately,
And
but I understand.
Yeah.
So it would be up to the, let's call it the store owner.
Sure.
It would be up, or a home video.
Correct, ring doorbell.
It would
anything.
be up to that person then to originate the transfer via a link that's supplied.
Correct.
Yeah. And
And that's with any recordable device, you know, like cell phones, ring doorbell, the camera system, security systems on homes, any of that stuff.
And there's so many different formats, like there's a lot of times where we have to call MEI. Can you make this open for me? Cause we can't get it, or, you know, Justin might have issues or. But I do agree that it is expensive and. Yeah,
What isn't?
well, yeah, and you know, a year from now, 10 years from now, all of these, you know, everything is going up, so
Is that available for document notes too?
it is, yeah. It is, yeah. And it streamlines it to one place, so when it comes to data request or getting things ready, discoverable for court, we only have to look in one place and there's all of our evidence.
Makes all of you guys more efficient. Right?
Yeah.
Including,
Well, and there's less room for error
right,
or suggestion that, you know, a deputy or an investigator missed something,
right.
you know, copy machines jam,
They do.
you know, they give pages. We have difficulty in some circumstances with, you know, surveillance videos getting downloaded. And, you know, when it ends up happening is you have a deputy recording what shows up, you know, and everyone's time is precious and you know, it's 16 grand, but that's spread over
10
you know,
years, yeah.
Pennies in the big scheme of things.
Is there any other questions? That's what I bring up, but in the long run, we're really not saving any money.
Yeah. We don't know. What we were discussing is that last upgrade for the software, that TAP, the end of the 10-year contract, you know. Certainly, we would have no idea what that cost could be 10 years from now. You know, I guess the question is that something that is acceptable by the board? You know, do we deduct that at this point and hope and pray that costs haven't gone up so bad in 10 years that something can justify 10 years down the road instead of spending that $44,000 now?
Well, you're really hooking your horse to them and hoping that they don't.
Yeah,
I know.
So is there a true value in that or not? I don't know.
Right.
you know, Chandler did say that our quote right now is $759. If we waited 2 years, it's likely gonna reach $1,210,000 for this exact same thing, so.
that might help you shop if you're, you know. You know, this is what we're looking at if we stay with Axon, you know, sweet.
And I do realize it's a lot of money, but I feel like these are necessities that going forward and with the advance of technology and Grant County Sheriff's Office getting on board with the advancement of technology, I think this is going forward. This is, you know, we budget for gas, we budget for ammunition, we have to budget for tasers, we have to budget for these. And so. I just want to say that.
And also moving forward, what you're budgeting now is some of this already. You're gonna budget 20, we're doing our 26 budget now. Some of these costs for some of this stuff in the budget already,
And so
so.
if we wanna, we can bring up our budget too. One of the handouts I have from 2023 to 25. We just wanted to highlight that we have always been under budget. Like in 2023, we were was it 303,000 under budget? Last year we were 49,000 under budget, so. We keep pretty strict, you know, with our budget, so.
So like going forward, would you just budget extra or where would this come from?
Well, we'd have to sit down and look at, you know, line item by line item as far as where, you know, equipment, trainings, you know, things like that come from. See what those differences would be in those line items. Right? Cause, you know, equipment is pretty broad. So that's where we'd start looking and, you know, whether there would need to be an increase within that line item or not, or within the budget period. You know, if you base it off of previous years and being under as we have, there may not be such a large increase, you know, to the levy as far as what our potential number could be.
One thing I think this is a huge opportunity. And I think it's important, obviously, the 48,772 that we recognize, obviously, that we're using $108,000 of our existing money to get it to that. But the other opportunity is, I know, because we discussed trying to move in a direction where we utilize our committees. And I guess, I think it should be acknowledged that Jen and John have done a lot of work. It appears the program is sound. I struggle a little bit with, like, one of our constituents says doing the right thing the wrong way doesn't necessarily make it right. And my concern is that the Public Safety Committee and the Budget Committee, we haven't utilized our resources in relation to how we should run this county. I think it's come too fast. I think it looks like a great program. I just struggle that we haven't used our resources when it comes to the decision-making process, being those two committees.
Well, you guys did bring it to the Budget and Finance
We did,
Committee.
yep.
So we sat in and looked over some of the same documents that you're showing today. You know, and without the additional $40,000,
Right, we, since last Tuesday, we
right?
received another $40,000
Right,
discount. And after next Monday, it's gonna go up because of the AI, which is $66,000 a year. That's quite a bit.
Well, my concern was that, you know, it was unbudgeted, but when I see what we can put towards it, it's somewhat budgeted because the money was there in areas where to be used, you know, for public safety. This is a public safety issue. And if we wait, it's gonna just cost more money. I've seen that my whole career here. You know, I've seen waiting, and at the end, it's a big price tag. And, there's certain situations that are gonna happen in Grant County, even though some people think nothing happens in Grant County. It's gonna happen, and we need to be right on top of that with evidence collection and just systems that help everybody involved get through these deals, so. So I'm gonna make a motion that we go ahead and do this. And so that's my motion that we go ahead with this, Evian proposal.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we get a second?
I'll second it, just so we can further on the discussion here. And you're talking 10-year now, right?
Yep, 10.
Okay. We can't put a price on, you know, the elevated heightened security that you guys need and the level of technology that has to go with that, that comes at a price, and we're all gonna pay that price. But, you know, we can't put a price on deputies' heads or even you guys, you know what I mean? Just because they just don't have the tools to be able to do their job. And this is just a sign of the times.
It is, and I think it, this is, I know not everybody likes the word retention, but I do feel, you know, we have a lot of younger deputies and there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of fear out there and this is a safety network for them. And I do think it's gonna help with retention
These
on
big,
top of transparency with the communities.
right? I've seen some of these videos that, you know, as far as these stops, you know, it's all over X and all that stuff of how things are happening and you gotta, you know, you got a wide array of responsibility when you get out of that car. And some, you know, a lot of times, you know, they're moving off where you're not even picking up what's happening. You know, and all of a sudden they come back into view again. Well, car cameras just don't cover us anymore. I don't know if you guys agree with that, but that's what these videos are showing, and I'm not there at those stops to see just what's. You know, we're lucky to live out here, we're low population, so it's, you know. And I would have to believe that the courts eventually are gonna want this. They probably don't require it now, I don't know that, Justin.
Well, it's part of, anything that we have that we would present in the case is considered evidence.
Right,
So discoverable, so it is, so that's just an addition, you know, moving forward.
okay,
When squad videos came, you know, the number of hearings that we had testing the validity of this stop went to zero because it's on video that the vehicle touched the fog line, went over the center line, and you know, it's you know, if a deputy goes to a domestic, you know, and writes in the report, you know, the alleged victim was scared. You know, it's tough to describe emotions. It's a lot easier to see it.
right,
We've seen an uptick in, you know, people claiming that they have been, you know, mistreated by a deputy. You know, we had the body camera because the DNR was there, you know, and that easily went away as it should. You know, and if somebody was mistreated, it's also a tool that would protect the public.
Well, and I agree 100% with all that, but what I don't know that I accept is that we're asked to weigh in on something. We got this grant 6.5 to 7 months ago, and we get 2 weeks. I don't question anything as far as the safety, everything you're presented. The problem I have is, I know there's other departments that come for a request. And I asked our staff, is it in your spreadsheet? Is it budgeted? Yes. And so here we are today, and we haven't utilized our committees. And we're asked to weigh in on something that I think is really important, and having that at our feet is not fair. Cause 7 months ago, we got a body cam grant. And we get 2 weeks to decide. It's just on how we move forward in this county, what we're trying to get to. I said this is a huge opportunity, and it's not only the opportunity to move forward with what you're presenting, but it's also the opportunity to ensure that we always do our due diligence. And that the financial due diligence of this county is respected, because we know there's a lot of cuts coming potentially. And to not weigh in on what we're gonna look at when it comes to a preliminary budget would not be fair. has no reflection. Thank you for the work you've done. I think it's wonderful, Jen. But that's not the chair that I'm sitting in. I'm sitting in another chair going, where's the fiscal note on this?
And so my thoughts there, we will be looking at the, you know, we're gonna start doing that. And there's some areas there where I think we can pick up a little bit of this money next year. Without bottom line, putting that levy percentage up. So, but I do think this is a critical stuff here, and I do think you guys have done a good job. And so that's where I'm at. I'm fully supportive of it.
And cooperating agencies are gonna appreciate us moving forward with it because they might need our data for some of their cases. So when you can mesh this together on a state level,
It's easy.
it is a big ask. But, you know, it's a cooperating thing that they're probably gonna wanna use some of this data as well. And if we don't have it, then we stand there and gotta go, well.
Well, you can look at that, the counties, there's a lot of small counties there that have this. Big Stone, Aquafarm, Norman, Red Lake, Yellow Medicine, Renville, Douglas, Stephen, Alec Petey.
So just a thought for a fellow board member. I'm with you. Why haven't we had discussions about this? Why haven't our committees presented? Why, if it's this important, have we not used our available people? Why?
Because these guys have been busy and so have we.
Well,
Well, I think they have,
maybe,
but didn't this just come up?
yeah, maybe I can,
There's a timeline,
Try to
there.
shed a
They didn't know about this 8 months ago.
you know, a little more light.
Well, they should, this thing has been available since 2020, or I saw on your data, that
Right,
actually
so,
didn't just show up.
no, correct, so. Going back to earlier conversations. Being that we have WatchGuard, which is Motorola based or owned now, okay? And since we had gone with the latest, server upgrade that we talked about, the 22,000. Plus software upgrade, which was 8,000, so we spent 30,000 on that. When we started talking about body cams, we only focused and looked at Motorola. Okay. And the grant, dollars, you know, as you know, we had said earlier that, yes, the board was absolutely right in the fact that, we should have been in contact with the board more often or at all regarding this grant. The grant came up relatively quick. We were probably more pessimistic than anything about even receiving it because we were told that never in the history that a small agency like Grant would have ever received that grant dollars. Those generally went to LAPD or NYPD. So we were surprised on that. And so once that grant money came in, that's when we started having obviously the conversations with the board then because of the 50-50 match. And that's where, yeah, we do understand it caused problems because now all of a sudden that $22,000 that we're asking the board for is a surprise to the board. Where was these discussions or where were these discussions prior to the ask, right? So
Can I
after,
just stop for a second?
Yep.
You're saying the 22,000 grant match is the surprise to this board? How about the 700?
no, I'm getting to that point.
Okay,
Okay, so, cause I'm just trying to run through some of the history here and how we ended up here, so. So with that being said, yeah, we come to the board and ask and present this grant and what we're looking at through Motorola for body worn cameras. As we move further on through this project, we start to find out that Motorola, as we've said before, was not, I would say, almost forthcoming with us as far as what their package entails, what's available, what isn't available. Or here's your overall cost. Oh, by the way, you would need another 8,000 for this. Oh, by the way, you'd need another 10,000 for that. And so Motorola to us, clearly showed that this was not a good, relationship when it came to them providing body worn cameras, for this office. And then so we started looking at other avenues, and that was that G-Tech product, which we weren't impressed with, because of their lack of, customer support service. However, they said, here's a price for the body worn cameras and squad cameras. If you're looking at bundling something, you know, have code 4 up in Pelican Rapids installed. Good luck with it. And so Axon is, you know, next in line. And that's how that thing grew, Ken, with, you know, let's look at body worn cameras. Okay, now this is the price for this. We have to look to the future as far as we gotta upgrade our squad cameras. Now we need to look at that price. Axon is Taser, so we have to upgrade those. That's how that whole thing moved along, and before you know it, they say, well, here's a bundled price for this amount, for these products, and this is where you sit. So, back when we had our budget and finance committee meeting, we did bring that to their attention, that now all of a sudden, what went from $55,000 roughly for Motorola just for body worn cameras, now went up to 700 and, you know, 59,000, whatever the overall dollar amount was. And, now I know that budget and finance committee meeting was in close proximity to the next board meeting. And, we were asked by that committee to certainly come to the next meeting, which we did, and present on where we were at. So, and that is the history of it, so.
And we've explained that before, like, you know, we know that this was, from the get-go, we were kind of behind the ball because we didn't think we were gonna receive the grant, but we still needed these upgrades. I mean, we're just getting by with the help of Otter Tail, Nobles, and Big Stone counties, making our fleet work, making our tasers work.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman. How many public safety committee meetings have you had in the last 7 months that would address what John just said?
I don't know if we've had any about the. There was one that I wasn't at the last one. But other than that, but I can't understand why they only like allow you 2 or maybe 3 weeks to hold the price.
And that's just because of the July 1st. With that going forward. I mean,
Because of what you said?
just because of the July 1st price increase, you know, they're willing to work with us. But just knowing after July 1st, it's gonna go up $66,000 for the AI. You know, and I don't know if we will get the exclusive discount of $128,000. We could possibly lose that.
So do you think that July 1st deadline was put out there to all of the
Oh, it is.
prospective, this was a package promotion that they're
Yep,
putting out there? Is that what they're doing?
yep, yep. And it's probably the last year, at least 6 months. I mean, it's nationwide. This is Axon AI is gonna go up.
I think we have set up to it. Have you looked at pricing this through Sourcewell, that cooperative body?
Okay, so I've talked to Chad because we are not familiar with Sourcewell. We've never done this. It is a competitive quote. And if you look on the last page of the quote, it talks about the language from Sourcewell.
So this is a Sourcewell?
It is, yes.
Okay.
Yep. So, I know Chandler really went out and found that, I think Highway uses Sourcewell quite a bit. And we've never dealt with anything with, I've looked into Sourcewell for funding for grants, but we're outside of their range. But Yeah, but it is a competitive quote, yep, with Sourcewell. And it,
Well, I fully support the program, I do not support the process.
and we apologize for the process. You know, we had no idea that this was gonna go anything like this. And that, I'm sorry for the timeframes. But whether we wait and it's gonna cost us more money, you know. I get it. It is a lot of money, but it is a necessity. And if I think if we wait longer, it's only gonna cost us more. Because the need is still there.
Exactly.
And I think this is just from here on out, like. Technology and equipment is gonna be the number one line items in our budget going forward, cause we can't work without these.
So, Mr. Chair, when is our preliminary budget finalized or due?
The end of September.
End of September.
So the work that will commence to take place July 1. July and August and September, we got 90 days of work. And we're looking at $760,000, and I can't say that something won't go up. I just think it's so important that we respect the process that we're trying to get to, utilizing our committees and the budgeting process in this environment. Once again, I'm gonna compliment you for the work you do. I think it's a good, and I think we'll have the program someday. I just struggle. We're gonna be backing into a granting or a budgeting process based on a decision today. That's my story.
Anybody else got any questions or any more discussion or?
Would you please clarify your motion, Dwight?
Okay, my motion is to go with this, well, what's the name again here?
Axon,
Axon.
Quote. And, you guys got that,
Is it the 10-year with all three?
Yes.
120 months.
10 years. We need an dollar amount in
Just wondering, a 10-year contract with Exxon to include the bundle of 3 pieces of equipment plus AI.
Yes.
And what was the amount, Jenny?
759. 089. And 80 cents.
Do you have an opinion? Okay, we'll proceed to vote with a roll call vote. Dwayne,
Yes.
Ken,
No,
Bill,
Yes.
Doyle, no. We just need more time. For budgeting. Motion failed.
Thank you.
Yep.
thank you.
Meeting adjourned, 11:07.